Hi, my name is Roger Linn, and I'm a maker of electronic music instruments. When I was a younger man, a much younger man, I had the great pleasure and luck of working with Leon Russell when I was about 20 years old as a recording engineer and part-time as a guitar player. I was lucky enough to be able to play guitar on Leon's tours, even though I wasn't nearly as good as the people that he was used to working with, but he was very kind to me and I learned a tremendous amount from him. So it was a wonderful experience. And this ties into, of course, the Church Studio, where he, which he owned, and where I lived in Tulsa for a while, and where I knew a great community of people that came in and out of the Church Studio, musicians, the engineers and producers that worked there, and it was really a wonderful time in my life. This is about 1975, and I felt very honored to be part of such a special community of people that made up what has come to be known as the Tulsa Sound. Well, Leon introduced me to the ideas of using drum machines in professional recordings. You have to understand that at that time, all that existed were poor quality drum machines. Number one, they played the same beat over and over again. You couldn't choose. You had, if you were playing rock, you had two choices. Rock 1, which is boom, sh, boom, boom, sh, boom, sh, boom, boom, or rock 2, boom, sh, boom, sh, boom, sh. And those are your two choices. And then the sounds sounded about as bad as my mouth noises. They were made with very early synthesis circuits. They were just noise generators. And these things were put in home organs. They were pretty much associated with cheap music. And so I didn't like them at all. And when I started working with Leon, he had one of the better drum machines. I think it was from the Roland Company or maybe Yamaha. And he would use it in the recordings basically as what they call a click track, where it would, the drummer and all the musicians would play in time to the drum machine, which some musicians don't like to do. But the advantage of that is it would keep the time steady throughout the recording. And one of the beauties of a multi-track recording and overdubbing is you can erase a part and replace it with someone else who plays with the other musicians on the track. But it's always hard to do that with the drummer, because if the drummer, for example, is the type of drummer who sometimes slows down, they call it dragging or speeding up, rushing and dragging, then the entire recording will speed up or slow down. But if everyone's playing in sync to this timing reference, the drum machine, it may not sound good. You may not use it in the final mix, but it'll keep the time steady all the way through. And so Leon, that way, could, for example, wipe the existing drummer off the track and put a new drummer on. And I saw the merits of this. Now the problem is that you only got to choose Rock 1 and Rock 2, or maybe Tango or Bossa Nova or something like that. So he actually wished that the drum machine was programmable. And he had actually had some conversations with Mr. Kakahashi, the founder of Roland, who, by the way, if anybody's the inventor of the drum machine, it was Mr. Kakahashi, who made the original Ace-Tone drum machine. That was his first company, I think in the early 70s, something like that. But at any rate, he had had some discussions. And you know, if you've got a programmed beat drum machine, somebody had to program the beat, so they, at least at the factory, had to have a programmable drum machine of some sort with a large array of switches on a wall or something like that. And nobody had found a practical way of making a machine that could be programmed. Anyway, he planted in my mind the seed of trying to make a drum machine that was programmable. So anyway, after we stopped working together, I got one of the early computers, and that's, since I was using a drum machine in my own little songwriting demo recordings, I thought, wouldn't it be great to change the beat? So I wrote a little computer program on an early computer I had that allowed you to program in a repeating beat. And then there had been some academic papers at the time about the idea of storing sound as numbers on tape, the digital recording process. And it occurred to me that you couldn't put tape in a drum machine to make the sampled sounds play back, but you could store it in computer memories. And even though computer memories were very expensive at the time, if all you needed to store it was a short bass drum and a short snare drum and a short hi-hat and a few other short drums, that didn't take up so much of this computer memory, and then you'd have the software sequencing these little strikes, and so it would play, say, play bass drum, play snare drum, play bass drum, play bass drum, play snare drum, and it's always the same recording playing, but nobody really noticed that, because they would notice the difference in, they noticed the whole beat playing. And so I would say that Leon was in large part the genesis of that idea, and he was very good about breaking my prejudice against the idea of drum machines and recordings, and using that, using drum machines. And I think were it not been for his influence in that area, I may not have gone on to develop my own drum machine. And I always respected drummers because it was something I couldn't play. I was a guitar player, I could fake my way on bass, I could play block chords on a keyboard, but making my recordings, it was hardest to do drums. I would always have to, roll tape and then run out of the studio and try to play it, and if it didn't work, I'd have to go back in, stop the tape, roll back. And so I always respected good drummers. So what I try to do is, as opposed to emulating any specific drummer, I tried to say, what are the qualities that make a groove so good that when someone's playing that beat, you have to move. It's engaging, it's compelling, and so what is it about those guys like Jamie or Jim Keltner or Jeff Porcaro and the others? And I think what I learned, first of all, I'd say another credit to Leon is I learned a lot about what makes great drummers, and he actually taught me about the fact that some drummers will use various amounts of swing timing, and it's not always a perfect swing like, and it's not always perfectly straight like, but sometimes it's in between like. And there are all these little gradients in between that give different rhythmic feels. And it also has to do with the dynamics. When someone's playing a hi-hat part, it's not just, it's sort of, all those sorts of things and all those little fills. And when someone really has great skill, they're able to put that stuff on and focus on the musical part of it, the interaction part, because all the skilled part, the timing, is a background task. They're so good it becomes automatic, and they can focus on listening to people and interacting with them. So I tried to put in elements of my drum machine, like the swing timing. For example, we've got all those variations between perfect 16th notes and swing time 16th notes. So I looked, in writing the original software, I said, well, if I just write in the software the ability to delay every alternate 16th note and vary the amount of delay, then you get that variable amount of swing timing. And it turned out to be a very good way of making drum machines sound more natural. Then I put in different dynamic levels so people could program in some of that nice dynamic playing, so everything isn't always at the same volume. And that and a few other little tricks like timing correction. If someone playing the part pressing the buttons in time to the metronome, if their timing is a little bit off, it would correct their timing errors and move them on to good notes. All those things put together, it allowed people to make good drum beats without having as much skill as a Jamie Oldaker or a Jim Keltner, for example. Now, of course, as we all know, no drum machine ever becomes one of those drummers, but at least got a lot better than what had existed before, and then the sampled sounds made it sound more real too. So I don't think it got closer to becoming the skills of a real drummer, but I think it's more that people used it in new ways that weren't as good as a real drummer, but added a sound to the records of the time. Well, the first one, which was called the LM-1 drum computer, I only made 500 of those, which is interesting. It's not very many at all, but they were all in the right hands. And it's in part because they were expensive. They were about $5,000 each. And so there was quite a stir in LA, for example, where I was living at the time. I grew up in LA. And so to spread the word, my marketing department, which was me, because there was nobody else at first, I would, through some of my musician friends, I would do a demonstration of an early prototype and show it to someone's studio. And this consisted of a cardboard box with some early circuit boards and wires hanging out of it. But if you pressed the buttons on the circuit boards, it would make those drum sounds, and people would just be amazed. They'd press the button and they'd hear this recording and they'd say, "How could this possibly happen? This is not possible. I've got to have one of those." And so I told them, well, it costs $5,000, but I'll need a $2,500 deposit, which I use basically just to fund my little operation. And finally I was able to deliver them, and quite an education. I was about 23 at the time, and so it was quite a learning process, learning how to make things reliably, which I didn't do particularly well at first, but I learned eventually about it. And it was a very exciting time to meet some of these people who, as a guitar player, I would have loved to have gotten an audition for, but I never could have. I wasn't good enough. I was not the A-string players. And have them calling me and saying, could I see this drum machine of yours?